Alright everybody, welcome back. Raccoon MMA, here we go. Bringing you a video that's not just picks for an upcoming event, so, count yourselves lucky. I'm doing year-end awards for the year of 2024 in the MMA world, not just in the UFC. And let's get right into it. Let's talk about the categories that we have for our awards this year. We're going to start off with our fighters of the year, so that'll be a male fighter and a female fighter of the year. A fight of the year, performance of the year from a title challenger, performance of the year from a champion, and performance of the year in a fight in a non-title fight. A bounce back of the year, that is someone who's made a bit of a career comeback. A robbery of the year, so when the judges have scored a fight egregiously wrong. A debut of the year, so someone who's entered the UFC or presumably had their first mixed martial arts fight. And that's gone really well for them. Letdown of the year, so something we were looking forward to that ended up not being that great. There's going to be an unsportsmanlike conduct award, and there will be an event of the year award for a pay-per-view, for a non-pay-per-view, and for an event outside the UFC, and a finish of the year. So let's get right into it with probably the most controversial one, the male fighter of the year. And I'm giving that to Ilia Topuria. Why? Well, back-to-back knockout wins over Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. This is pretty impressive, right? I mean, I didn't pick him in either of these fights, and I think, after he fought Volk, everyone said, well, yeah, he's good, he's got power, he's a good boxer, he's not a well-rounded fighter, though, right? Well, maybe he's got good takedown defense, but he's really just a boxer with power, and Holloway's going to beat him, right? And people talked about how the only reason he was able to knock out Volk was because, Islam already did the work. Volk came back too quickly after being knocked out by Islam. And then he goes out and he does what nobody has ever come close to doing before, except maybe Dustin Poirier, and he knocks out Max Holloway. That's pretty impressive, right? That's hugely impressive. I think knocking out Volk is enough to put you in the fighter of the year conversation. Knocking out Max Holloway, it makes it so clear. In my first runner-up, that is second place, I have Alex Pereira, who, of course, fought and defended his title 3 times this year and got a knockout in each of those fights. That's pretty impressive. He fought Jamal Hill and knocked him out in the first round at UFC 300. He fought Yuri Prochazka and knocked him out in the second round at UFC 303. And then he fought Khalil Roundtree Jr. and knocked him out in the fourth round at UFC 307. Very impressive. The reason I don't put him over Ilia Topuria, well, there are a few reasons. First of all, the Jamal Hill win is very impressive. But at the same time, Jamal Hill was rushed back from an Achilles injury, right? Like, he was supposed to take 9 months to recover. He took like 8. And that's 9 months without even training, and he was fighting in 8. That's not great, right? The Yuri win, short notice, yes, and also he had just beat Yuri also by knockout in the second round, not even a year prior. So I'm not super impressed by that. The Khalil fight, again, very good fight, but he dropped 2 rounds to the number 8 guy, right? And I don't want to be disrespectful here. I don't want to be like Alex Pereira sucks. I think everything he did was very impressive. 3 straight finishes, short notice title defense, so impressive. I just think that none of these wins are as impressive, even if you take them at their absolute best, compared to knocking out Max Holloway, compared to knocking out Alexander Volkanovski. My second runner-up is Diego Lopez, who started the year unranked. He got a first-round knockout at UFC 300. He took a fight on 4 hours' notice against a guy 20 pounds heavier than him at UFC 303 and won, and he dominated Brian Ortega at UFC 306. And now he's in title conversation. That's really impressive. And my honorable mention is for Joaquin Buckley, who is on a 4-fight win streak, a 5-fight win streak, but a 4-fight win streak in 2024 against some solid opponents. So yeah, really impressed by all of these guys. For my female fighter of the year, I have Kayla Harrison. So Kayla Harrison has fought twice in 2024. Her first fight was her UFC debut, maybe a hint for something, at UFC 300, where she fought Holly Holm and submitted her. Of course, Holly Holm is the perfect matchup for one of these great judokas because of what she did to Ronda Rousey. She was the first person to beat Ronda Rousey, took her title away. But you had none of that with Kayla Harrison. And obviously it's been many years since that point and, blah, blah, blah. But we have none of that with Kayla Harrison. She beat the hell out of Holly Holm in the first round. She submitted her in the second. And then she came back at UFC 307 and won a dominant decision against Ketlen Vieira, largely on the feet, showing off her striking. Now, people might say, this is just 2 wins. Ketlen Vieira is a good fighter. Holly Holm is very old. But I think the fact that Kayla Harrison dropped down 20 pounds is very, very impressive, right? The fact that she shaved off 20 pounds to come into the UFC. She fought at lightweight in PFL. She had one fight at featherweight, but she mostly fought at lightweight in PFL. And then she comes down all the way to bantamweight, to 135 pounds from 155, and is making the weight and beating these people up and fighting for 3 rounds. Very, very impressive. So she is my female fighter of the year. First runner, very, very close, is Dakota Tcheva. She is, I think, the only non-UFC fighter to get into these lists. And she's had a great year. She's 4-0 this year. She fought in the PFL flyweight tournament, so she had 2 regular season fights and 2 playoff fights, most recently winning the championship and $1 million by knocking out Taila Santos, which is very impressive. Valentina Shevchenko got taken to a split decision by Taila Santos, and Dakota Tcheva stopped her with strikes. So very, very impressive. 4-0 is amazing, and Tcheva is a real finisher. I'd love to see her talent in the UFC sometime, but I'm sure she's happy to be picking up the checks and being treated right by the PFL. So I'm happy to see her beating people up there as well for as long as she wants to do that. My second runner-up is Valentina Shevchenko, who regained her title not in an entertaining fashion, but in very dominant fashion and very impressive fashion against a really solid opponent at UFC 306. And my honorable mention is Zhang Weili, who defended her title against Yan Xiaonan, again in a very fun fight at UFC 300. Okay, so moving on to debut of the year, Kayla Harrison theme right now. Yes, I think that Kayla Harrison's debut was so impressive. So impressive to drop 20 pounds, to come in against, not a fighter at her peak, not a fighter in her prime or anywhere near her best form, but still a solid fighter who gives people tough fights, who beats people more than she loses to them, and to obliterate her like Kayla Harrison did. I was hugely impressed. And my number 2 would be Mauricio Hufi's debut at UFC 301 against Jamie Mullarkey. Not as impressed by his second fight, but hugely impressed by his first one, his debut. I mean, Mullarkey had nothing for this guy. He was just styling on him until he finished him. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever watched. Okay, fight of the year. You guys might not like these ones either. I've given you my top 3. I've done 2 honorable mentions. Number 1 fight of the year for me is Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier at UFC 302. This fight was incredible. It had everything. It had really cool grappling sequences where both guys were having success. Islam was doing good at doing ground and pound. He was getting these great body triangles. He was transitioning from body triangles to mounts in really cool ways. He was threatening submissions, arm bars and kimuras and things like that. Dustin Poirier was defending takedowns and hitting switches on Islam. And, on the feet, again, same thing. The first 2-3 rounds, Islam Makhachev was really being successful against Dustin Poirier, the best boxer in the UFC on the feet. Maybe the first round and a half. And then, Dustin starts to take over on the feet, but it's still super competitive in that realm. And so it was cool because it's one of the fights where, obviously there's a clear advantage and there's a clear favorite, but both guys are having success in every area of the fight. It's a high-level fight, but also they're successful enough that they're getting bloody. They're really scrapping it out. Both of them have to show their heart. I've never seen Islam bleed as much as he did in this fight. And, some guys who are solid fighters really don't do well at the sight of their own blood. I'm thinking of people like Sean Strickland. And that was always something I wondered with Islam, but now I know, right? So, and then, of course, Islam digs deep in the 5th round and gets that amazing finish. But Poirier's got nothing to be ashamed of. I thought that was... So, in my opinion, that's the best fight of the year. Number 2 fight of the year, Petr Yan versus Davison Figueiredo at UFC Macau, just because this was a high-level fight, right? This wasn't a fight where either guy had to dig deep or show a lot of heart or anything like that, but it was just a really skilled fight on both sides. It was a lot of fun to watch. Petr Yan, when he has a good dance partner, is always an amazing fighter to watch. Davison Figueiredo. Not a huge fan, but again, a very, very good fighter. So I really, really like this one. And number 3, this is one I haven't really seen people talk about much. It's kind of been forgotten. But Renato Moicano versus Drew Dober. A competitive fight, same thing. Both guys have success in both areas. Both guys are getting beaten up, beating each other up, have to push through, show heart. Moicano wins the unanimous decision. Really fun fight. And my honorable mentions are Alex Pereira versus Khalil Roundtree Jr. I mean, who would have thought that Khalil Roundtree Jr. would have taken 2 rounds off Alex Pereira, would have dropped him by doing this on the feet. And then, when Pereira switches on in the 4th round and just goes for the kill and finishes Khalil, is just amazing. Really, really fun fight. And Daniel Zellhuber versus Esteban Rivabrich at UFC 306. The heart shown by both guys, the skill shown by both guys. Just incredible, incredible fight. There are other ones I really liked, but like a personal favorite of mine was Chase Hooper versus Clay Guida, but like that's not something that I could say objectively this should be named the best fight of the year. I was actually a big fan. I rewatched Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad a lot, but I'm not going to come up and be like objectively this is a fight that everybody loves to watch and was just that amazing. So I think this is a good compromise between what I really like and what I think everybody should really like in terms of these fights of the year. Letdown of the year. So something we were looking forward to and ended up sucking, which is the trilogy between Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko. This might be my own personal bias leaking in here, but like I remember the first fight between the two of them was, it was a good fight. It was a really, really good fight. It was high level. It was fun. Of course, you have the amazing finish, but you have Alexa Grasso really pushing Shevchenko in the striking in ways that she hasn't really been pushed since she fought Nunes. And then, of course, she takes rounds off before she gets that finish in the 4th round. You get some really fun scrambles on the ground. Their second fight, that was my fight of the year for last year. Their rematch at the first Noche UFC. Again, really fun fight. Great scrambles in the grappling. Grasso knocks Shevchenko down. Shevchenko splits Grasso open on the feet. These people, they're putting everything into it. It's a high-level fight. It's one of the highest, maybe the highest-level women's MMA fight I've ever seen. Just really, really fun stuff. And then we get to this fight, and it seems like Shevchenko is completely unwilling to engage on the feet, and Grasso has forgotten everything that worked for her in the grappling in terms of her great scrambles and her get-ups and things like that. And so what we essentially get is Shevchenko holding Grasso down for 25 minutes while Grasso half-heartedly attempts a submission or two. It sucked. I hated it. I haven't rewatched it. Obviously, I was very disappointed that Grasso lost her belt. I still think there needs to be a quadrilogy. Maybe we let Manon Fiorot fight first, but Grasso should be next. But I was just let down by this fight overall. I don't know what happened. It's like both fighters forgot what made those first 2 fights great. Obviously Shevchenko had a good game plan in the sense that it won her belt back. Grasso did not have a good game plan. I don't know what happened there, but that was a huge letdown for me and for everybody, I think. Especially like every fight on that card was great until this point. And that was really disappointing to me. Performance of the year by a title challenger. This one is obvious, right? Bilal Muhammad. Everybody counted him out. You can go back and watch my prediction video for that event where I break down basically exactly what Bilal Muhammad is going to do, saying here's how Bilal Muhammad would win and could win. And then I say, yeah, but Leon Edwards is really good. So I think that Leon Edwards is going to win. That's essentially what I do. And I think everyone was doing this. Everyone was counting Bilal out, And this is a guy who gets booed wherever he goes because people have convinced themselves that his fighting style is boring. But he went out there, again, in hostile territory, and he dominated the champion. He made Leon Edwards, who everyone was talking about as the guy to beat Islam Makhachev, and this amazing fighter, the final form of an MMA fighter. He's got the peak physique, and he's such a good kickboxer with this great takedown defense. And look at the way he was grappling with Colby, and Bilal just ran through him like a knife through hot butter. And so that was amazing. And so to me, that from a title challenger, that's the performance of the year. First runner-up, I will also give to Shevchenko. Again, not a fun performance, but there was no room. It was a 49-46. There was no room for doubt in that performance. Grasso had essentially nothing for her except for one guillotine, which she tried from closed guard anyway, so it was never going to work. Second runner-up, Merab Dvalishvili. Same thing, dominated his opponent. But I think that there were a lot of people who expected him to win that fight, so including me. So not as, impressive. And then I'll give an honorable mention to Dustin Poirier. I'm not going to put him in the top 3 here because he lost, but people expected this guy to get tossed around and submitted in 1 or 2, and he just had guts and he had heart. I'll also throw the name Khalil Roundtree out there as well, for the same reason. And he gave the champion a real run for his money. So I'm going to throw Dustin Poirier in there, and I'm going to throw the name Khalil Roundtree out as well. Performance of the year by a reigning champion. Number 1, I have Tom Aspinall, the reigning, defending, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, who knocked out Curtis Blades in the first round. Really, really impressive performance. Tom Aspinall, of course, defending his interim championship was impressive as is. But to fight Curtis Blades, who, was coming off a really impressive win off of, against Jailton Almeida, who was like a total boogeyman of the division, who was undefeated in the UFC at the time, like a really, really, really good fighter, who no one wanted to fight, and Curtis Blades fought him, and he finished him at UFC 299 very quickly. And, prior to that, he only ever lost to power punchers, Ngannou, Derek Lewis, Sergey Pavlovich, instead of these more, well-rounded guys like Tom Aspinall. He beat Volkov, he beat Junior Dos Santos, he beat, Jairzinho Rosenstrike, like a lot of these different guys he beat. He has that win over Tom Aspinall, but that was a knee injury. And so, Curtis Blades is a scary guy, and I think if, there's anybody who is going to take lightning in a bottle like Tom Aspinall and drag him into deep waters where he's never been dragged, it is a guy like Curtis Blades, who is the best pure wrestler at heavyweight. And Tom Aspinall just knocked him out like it was nothing. Really, really impressive stuff. So, in terms of, best performance as a champion, gotta be him. Number 2, I'm going to say Ilia Topuria against Max Holloway. I had him down 2 rounds, but, they were super competitive, and they were super good rounds, and, of course, it's not just anybody who goes out there and knocks Max Holloway out. The fact that he did that in a title defense, super impressive. The fact that it was competitive against Max Holloway even before that, super impressive. Second runner-up, I'm going to say Zhang Wei Li for her fight against Yan Xiaonan. It was a fight where she faced adversity and she overcame it. Really weird fight, dominant rounds one way or the other. But, also, I think people were joking at the time that Zhang Wei Li won that fight all 3 different ways. She got a submission, she got a TKO, and she won by decision. It was a bit of a dubious reffing in that fight. But, again, a really game and really tough opponent in Yan Xiaonan. Zhang Wei Li went out there and she put on a hell of a performance. And she's not young either. So I was very impressed by that. And my honorable mention will be Islam Makhachev against Dustin Poirier, because Poirier showed up for that fight. And he tested Islam in ways that he hadn't been tested before. And Islam passed the test with flying colors. Poirier was going to take him to a split decision, and he dug deep and he found that submission. But even before that, it was just a great performance from him, doing what he does best and also doing well in areas outside of his comfort zone. Very, very impressed by all of these guys. I'm also going to throw Alex Pereira out there against Jamal Hill, against Yuri Prohaska. Either one of those. Really, really impressive performances from him as well. Just total shutdown of solid opponents. And performance of the year in non-title fights. I have a tie in first place, but it's a tie between 2 fights by the same guy. So, we'll just keep him around, and that is Brandon Royval. The first is when he stepped in on short notice to fight Brandon Moreno in Mexico City. Super impressive performance, the way he rallied, the way he made reads, and ended up just outstriking the guy. Really impressed by that. And then when he fought Tatsuo Taira, who, again, undefeated in all competitions, nobody wanted to fight this guy, a finisher, an amazing grappler, Um, and Royval beat him. It was a split decision, but I thought it was pretty convincing, 48-47. He overcame a lot of adversity. He overcame a lot of the faults that he had in previous fights. If you think about when he fought Pantoja either time, and the way that Pantoja was just able to kind of smother him and hold him down and stop his amazing scrambles. And Royval was able, he showed real improvements, and I think that he's finally starting to put things together in his career. And I think that you can kind of see everything click. I think the Moreno fight is really cool because you can actually see everything kind of click for him about a round and a half into that fight. And he was just on against Tatsuo Taira. It was just amazing. So, yeah, I'm giving those two a tie, but because it's the same guy, I don't really care about it, and I'm giving the award to Brandon Royval. I love you, man. What an amazing fighter, and I'm really glad that he's kind of put it all together, and it's really all working for him at the moment. I think that he can beat Pantoja. I think that he really can. My first runner-up is Max Holloway. I was conflicted about this one. I kind of wanted to put him in the title fight category, but I don't know. I felt bad about knocking Zhang Wei Li or Islam Makhachev off of this list. I didn't know where I'd put him. I know it was a BMF title fight against Justin Gaethje, but it's not an undisputed title, so I put him in here. He pitched an absolute shutout against the guy, which is really cool. And then, of course, the knockout with 1 second left. I mean, everyone saw it. What an amazing moment. Max Holloway has to be on this list. I'm not putting him over Royval because I think that stylistically, and I said it at the time, a guy like Max should be dominating Justin Gaethje, whereas Royval came back. The first time he fought Moreno, it went really bad for him, and Tatsuo Taira is a stylistic nightmare, and he put in a hell of a clinic against both of them, so that's why I'm impressed. My second runner-up is a guy who actually lost in the fight that I'm talking about, but that is Ian Gary against Shavkat Rakhmonov. He took this fight on short notice against an undefeated guy, a killer, the boogeyman, somebody nobody wanted to fight in the division, and Ian Gary stepped up on short notice to do it. And same thing, he put on a hell of a fight. He won the last 2 rounds. He almost submitted Shavkat, and I think he changed the way a lot of people talk about him. He gets a lot of criticism for being overly technical. He gets a lot of criticism for, nonsense people make up about his personal life. But I think in that fight, he showed a lot of heart, even just taking the fight, but in the fight as well. He tried to get the finish. He did a really good job, and now Shavkat doesn't have a 100% finish rate. So I think that was a great performance in a losing effort by Ian Machado Gary. So hats off to him. And my honorable mention is Brian Ortega against Yair Rodriguez. This guy got 10-8'd in the first round. He got dropped. He got beat up. He injured himself in the introductions. He twisted his ankle. And then he came back in the second round, got himself a 10-8 round, and submitted Yair Rodriguez in the third. This made me really mad, by the way. I was really, really mad about this. I still haven't forgiven Brian Ortega for beating Yair, but it was a hell of a performance, so my hat's off to him as well. Unsportsmanlike Conduct Award. This goes to John Jones. Who else would it go to? For a few things. The first is when a drug tester came to his home and said, "I have to drug test you," and he threatened her. The heavyweight champion of the world in mixed martial arts and one of the scariest men on earth threatened this lady, made her leave so that she couldn't take blood from him and test to see if he was on drugs. And he didn't get tested, and he got away with a slap on the wrist because the UFC loves him. And then, of course, his athletic integrity and hypocrisy in refusing to fight the interim champion in his own division. Athletic integrity in the sense that you're the undisputed champion and you don't want to fight the interim champion, and you're getting away with that. But also the hypocrisy in the sense that there was a time that John Jones was the young guy fighting all these old up-and-comers. Before he was champion, he was fighting Stephan Bonner. These old guys gave him the shot. Everyone talks about the rivalry with DC. The ages are the same, 37, 31. So that's very hypocritical of him. And just because you're a quote-unquote legend does not mean that you get to do that. But I guess the UFC thinks that you do. And also manufacturing beef. The way he tried to start arguments with Stipe Miocic, who is just a nice guy in the lead up to their fight, just don't sit right with me. So, yeah, reward for worst person in the world of MMA. at least worst fighter in the world of MMA goes to John Jones. Who else? Event of the year, pay-per-view, obviously goes to UFC 300. Hell of an event. There was only one miss, which was Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage. That was a bad fight, and two people who did not deserve to be on UFC 300. But apart from that, every fight was good. Yes, even Aljamain Sterling versus Kelvin Kattar was a good fight. Most of these fights, again, apart from Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage, mattered to their divisions and accomplished something in their divisions. Most fights were fun. So, yeah, hell of a card. My honorable mentions are UFC 306, Noche UFC, which was a fine fight card. A really good fight card if you ignore the top two, but, just a technical achievement in doing it in the Sphere was really cool. And UFC 308, which was basically just a perfect card. Non-pay-per-view event of the year, I'm giving to Fight Night Abu Dhabi, Sandhagen versus Nurmagomedov. Again, this is another one that kind of flew under the radar when people talked about the best events this year. I thought it was great. You have this amazing main event between Corey Sandhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov, as well as your great co-main between Sharipov Magomedov and Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. I feel kind of bad for Oleksiejczuk, what's happened to him, just all the killers are lining him up against. Yeah, great main event, cool co-main, stacked undercard, some fun upsets in this one. Lupe Godinez did get robbed, but that's fine. I won't hold it against the card. That's the judges. That would have happened anywhere. My honorable mentions will be Fight Night Saudi Arabia, Whitaker versus Ikram Alaskarov, as well as UFC Macau, Petr Yan versus Davison Figueiredo, and Yan Xiaonan versus Tabitha Ricci, which was just chock full of amazing, amazing moments. And my event of the year outside the UFC, there are a few ones to choose from, but I chose the PFL Battle of the Giants card. I mean, the return of Francis Ngannou to MMA, and that amazing first-round TKO he got over Hidan Ferreira, who is a solid fighter, as well as Chris Cyborg turning back the clock and beating a really solid fighter who is like 10 years younger than her. Really impressive. By the way, if you don't know, Kayla Harrison's only loss in MMA is to Larissa Pacheco. I don't know if that was scored correctly, but a lot of people feel it was. And Chris Cyborg put on a really good performance against her and beat her. Arguably the GOAT of women's MMA, but no one talks about her because she's not in the UFC anymore. But yeah, that was a hell of an event. The featured bout as well between Johnny Eblin and Fabian Edwards was also solid, but unfortunately Johnny Eblin won. Bounce back of the year. So a career resurgence. It's got to be Petr Yan, right? After that really rough period he had after kneeing Aljamain Sterling in the head, he's back with two really solid wins this year. A decision over Song Yadong at UFC 299. Song Yadong's a really good fighter. And a decision over Davison Figueiredo. Sorry, that says UFC 307. That should say UFC Macau. Again, two really solid fighters. Song Yadong probably the better fighter, but two really, really good ones. Petr Yan looks back on form. They were talking about a fight with Merab again. I don't think that should happen, but I really hope that if Umar Nurmagomedov wins that fight, we get Petr Yan versus Umar, because that would be an amazing fight. First runner-up, Dominic Reyes, 2-0, 2 finishes in 2024. Title run is happening. Second runner-up, Charles Johnson. He was on a 3-fight losing streak before 2024, and now he's on a 4-fight winning streak, including an incredible win over Joshua Van, who is viewed by many as the future of the flyweight division. Charles Johnson, energy, knocked him out. So very, very impressive. I was mad about that one as well, but I got to hand him his respect. And my honorable mention will be Dustin Poirier as well, doing what he did to Benoit Saint-Denis and putting on that performance he did against Islam Makhachev after the very brutal head kick knockout loss to Gaethje in 2023. Very impressed, and especially because, and I'm sure this happens to a lot of fighters, but Poirier's been very open about the way that affected his mental health and sort of his sense of purpose with his career drawing to an end. And so overcoming that and coming out with a positive attitude and things like that. And you could really tell in these last 2 fights that he was just having fun. Really, really happy for him. So I'll throw him in there as the honorable mention. Robbery of the year, and I want to be clear here. No disrespect to the fighters on this list. It is not a fighter's fault if the judges score the fight a certain way. They do the best they can, right? Juliana Pena versus Raquel Pennington, UFC 307, clear robbery. One of the most blatant robberies I have seen. I actually kind of have a soft spot for Juliana Pena. I think she's kind of funny. I think she's a fun heel. I like that, her and Bilal Muhammad are the Chicago champions, and the way they promote their fights is just by being as annoying as possible. I really respect that. But Rocky won that fight. It was clear. By Pride rules, by UFC rules, round by round, or the fight as a whole, Raquel Pennington won that fight. She got dropped. She got beaten up. Pena, that is. She is not the champion, but she's got the belt, and Kayla Harrison will probably take it from her in the new year. The first runner-up I'm giving to two people because I actually think this is probably the most egregious set of robberies in non-title fights I've seen in a while because they happen back-to-back. These two people, Mackenzie Dern and Virna Jandiroba, both fighters I'm very fond of, really excellent grapplers, fought Lupi Godinez this year. And for context, last year in 2023, Lupi Godinez went 4-0 in the UFC. She is the only women's MMA fighter to do that in UFC history. And I mean, just going 4-0 in general is hard as is. She had a real hot streak going. And she fought Virna Jandiroba. She got robbed. She fought Mackenzie Dern. She got robbed. And just like that, all her momentum is gone, right? That's really disappointing. That sucks to see that happen to somebody's career. But again, no disrespect to these two fighters. Virna Jandiroba probably fighting for the title next. And I wish her the absolute best of luck. I'm just a bit sad that that's not Lupi Godinez. And my second runner-up is Cyril Gane against Alexander Volkov. Same thing. That was a very clear fight. Title implications on the line. And Volkov clearly won. So I don't know what's going on there. Okay. Finish of the year. You guys aren't going to like this one. You guys are going to say this should go to Max Holloway. But I just love a good submission. I love a good submission. So I got to give it to Islam Makhachev for his submission win over Dustin Poirier. I've talked enough about this fight in this video. I love this fight. But, hell of a fight. But the way that Islam dug deep in that fifth round, turning that ankle pick into the Dara stroke, best title fight Poirier we've ever seen. And he tapped him out. He put him to sleep. Really impressed. First runner-up, of course, Max Holloway, his knockout over Justin Gaethje. The only reason I don't put it at the top is because it's the same thing. Well, just like Islam, it was supposed to happen, but it was not a competitive fight leading up to the knockout. Second runner-up, Ilia Topuria for his knockout over Max Holloway. Sorry, Max. And honorable mention, Alex Pereira for his finish, actually over Khalil Roundtree I have here, just because of the way he was, down in the fight, and he just switched on kind of Terminator mode and just walked Khalil down and finished him. I was very impressed by that. But if you're feeling better about it, you can put in the Jamal Hill knockout because of how funny it was, or the Yuri Prohashka knockout because of how devastating it was. It doesn't really matter. Alex Pereira, one of those three knockouts should be on the list. And just to finish up, I want to wish some of these fighters a happy retirement. Joanne Wood, Scottish fighter, the first flyweight fighter women's flyweight fighter in UFC history. Almost fought for the title, but Shevchenko got injured, and she stepped in at short notice and started losing. Joanne Wood did, that is, which is pretty sad, but a pioneer of the sport, a pioneer of women's MMA and women's MMA in the UFC. So yeah, hell of a fighter. Happy retirement. Anthony Lionheart-Smith is probably retiring. It's easy to meme this guy because of the way he, the on-paper stuff and things like that. But, this is a guy who's really good. I mean, he submitted Alexander Gustafsson in his prime, right? He's got like a 93% finish rate or something like that. Like, he's a solid fighter. He's been around forever. He's put on some really good fights. I'm nothing but grateful. Carla Esparza also retired this year after losing to Tecia Pennington. And, I mean, if you've watched MMA for a while, you've seen Carla Esparza, right? What she did in her career, I just found so impressive. So for context, she was the inaugural UFC strawweight champion, the first one. She lost her belt to Joanna Jędrzejczyk coming up, and then the belt changed hands a bunch of times. And something 7 or 9 years later, something like that, she wins her belt back, which is an insane achievement. Like, that's a crazy thing to do, especially in the best women's division, against a really solid fighter like Rose Namajunas. You know, she gets a lot of crap for how boring her second fight against Namajunas was, but that was more Thug Rose's fault. And, you know, she went on to lose that belt to Zhang Wei Li, but just the fact that she, like, that achievement on its own, that's Hall of Fame for me. Stipe Miocic, of course, probably the heavyweight GOAT. He retired this year after coming back to fight John Jones and losing. This guy's got some amazing wins. You know, Alistair Overeem and Junior Dos Santos, and 2 wins over DC. A win over Francis Ngannou. So, hell of a career. Definitely will be missed, but it's the right time. I mean, he looks too old to be fighting against John Jones. And Michelle Waterson Gomez, another kind of pioneer of the sport. 15 years ago, she was the best atomweight in the world. She went up 10 pounds to try her hand in the UFC. Didn't work out for her, but she put on some great fights. Her fight against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I always remember. You know, a fun striker, really, really solid fighter. And I wish her the best in retirement as well. Also, shout out to Jack Shore and Damon Jackson, who announced their retirement this year. And if there's anyone else I missed, happy retirement to you guys as well. Thank you guys all for watching. Happy New Year. Hope we get some good things in the UFC and in the MMA world in the new year. And I'm manifesting Alexa Grasso getting her belt back. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe to the video if you liked it and you want to see more. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Ciao.